Hey everybody, it's Mighty Monday. Woo woo! Jesus! I'm here with Brother Frank and Sister Gina, and they're going to share their testimony. Brother Frank's going to go first and talk about his life growing up and all that follows. You know the story. So he's going to share his testimony, and then Sister Gina will share hers, and then they're going to come together and share together as husband and wife and the stuff that the Lord has brought them through. Amen. So be blessed. And here's Brother Frank.
Okay. Hi, my name is Frank. I'm going to give a little testimony in my life, how good it was, then how bad it got, and then how good it is now. So, I grew up in El Monte, California. I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and my dad was older. My dad was 58 when I was born, and he had 1 before me and 2 after me. He had his last kid he was 65 years old. So we all grew up with an older dad, but he was amazing. My dad was great. I grew up I was his shadow. Everything he did, I wanted to do. I loved him. He was a big band jazz musician, and we used to listen to the old '78 records all the time, and we used to love the music, and we had race horses. I used to go to the racetrack when I was a kid, and we used to watch our horses run, and we used to go to the ranches and see them, the babies, and to name all the babies, and it was an amazing childhood growing up. And so anyways, I thought I was gonna be the next Bob Baffert when I was growing up. He's a famous trainer, but never did. I started doing drugs, and at about 15 years old, and I let all that go. I just started partying, not doing the things that I was supposed to be doing. In fact, one of the best horses we ever had, his name was Haven Park. When I was about 15 years old, I was the one that was always in control of giving them their shots and making sure every year that they got their shots. And one night, the lady from the ranch, she came up to the house, and I hadn't been there in like months, well, probably a couple months, and she told me, she goes, "Hey, you got to come to the ranch right now. Haven Park's real bad. He can't get up." And so we went over there, and he was laying there, and the vet said, he told my dad, he said, "We can give him shots and put him up on the hill and see if he'll maybe stay alive, and if he can get up the next morning, maybe it might do him some good." But the vet said, I don't see it happening, that we think he's not gonna make it. So they said the best thing to do would be to put him down. So we put him to sleep, and then the lady from the ranch, she told me, she said, "Well, the reason why he died." And I was like, I didn't know. I was all high on drugs. And she said, "Because you haven't been there, and you didn't give him his shots, and that's what happened. So that's the reason why he died." And he was a good horse. He was the best one we ever had, and we had a bunch of babies with him, and those babies were all there, and they were like 1, 2 years old. I had named them all, but the drugs took all that away. Then I remember one day I came home, and my dad was sitting at the table, and he said, I walked in and he was crying, and I go, "What's wrong, Dad?" He goes, "I can't remember." He goes, "I'm losing my mind. I can't remember anything anymore." So I was like, pfft. It just made it worse, and I started doing more drugs, and little did I know, though, that my dad at that time was 70, probably he was about 78 years old, little did I know that he was going to live 16 more years, because he lived to be 92 years old. So all that time that I could have been spending with my dad and bringing up them racehorses and doing things that God gave me in the beginning, I let it all go just for drugs and women and all kinds of stupid stuff. So, but like they said, how God has plans for everybody, and when we go off course, he how's that say when they navigate the navigator thing?
It's the GPS.
The GPS, how it says when we go off course, it's renavigating.
Correct.
Well, that's what Jesus was doing for me. God was doing for me. I mean, I knew God, but I went straight away from him. So he had to. I was stubborn, so I had to keep renavigating. But, anyways, I got married, and I had a daughter. Actually, I had 2 daughters and a son with this woman I married, and the relationship with her lasted 10 years. But all through the 10 years, I was still just doing drugs. I used to work, but I still was. I had to get high every day. Every morning I got up. When I got up, if I even went to sleep that night, I had to do drugs. I just did drugs, but I snorted it, and that's the way I did it. And it lasted 10 years, but in those 10 years, I ruined a lot of things. I lost all the properties that my dad had, fought with my family over them. Just a bunch of crazy stuff went on, but I lost my wife and my kids. She took the kids away, and then that was like in 2001, and then it really got bad. From 2001 to 2010, it's 10 years. 10 years I was just out there. I never had not one place that I could say I lived at. I just kept moving from place to place to place to place, from girl to girl to girl to girl to girl, all over them, just all over the place. All right, so in 2001, I was telling you that I really got bad on the drugs because I got separated from my wife and my kids and everything, and I had nothing but the drugs and partying and stuff. And during that time in 2004, I remember my dad passed away, and he was 92 years old. And when he passed away, it was, I mean, I was doing drugs and getting high and everything, but still, I was right there. I was holding his hand when he died, and I was right where I wanted to be because how close I was to him and how much I loved him. And when he died, it was like I actually like watched him go up to heaven. I mean, he was. I remember the last 2 or 3 weeks of him being alive. I remember hearing him because he lived every day at the house all the way up till the day he died. But I remember hearing him out in the living room, and he'd be like, "Lord, what are you waiting on, Lord? Why can't?" He'd be like, can't you take me now? I'm ready, Lord, I'm ready. And he'd be yelling that out all night long. He'd be yelling that out till the day that we called the ambulance. We called the ambulance around 3 a.m, and I remember he looked at me right on the gurney in the ambulance, and he goes, and it was the first time he ever said anything like this. He said, "I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back." And so when he went to the hospital, I remember that all my family was standing around him. It was all my brothers and sisters. We were all just standing around him, and I got in there, and I looked at my dad, and he wasn't saying nothing. My sister goes, "He won't say a word. He won't even give us an expression or nothing. He won't do nothing." And I looked at him, and I said, "Dad," and I said, "You see the straw hats, huh? You see the straw hats?" And he went like this. He actually made a, like showed a sign that he heard somebody.
Yeah.
And my sister's like, "What the heck? Well, how do you know about? How did you make him say something?" And I remember a story my dad always told me when he was a kid. When he was a kid, he got the flu epidemic, and he was laying there, and he had the fever and everything, and I remember he told me, he said that he looked at his mom and said, "Look, Mom, look at the kids with the straw hats." And his mom and his dad fell on the ground crying because her her brother said the same thing right before he died of that flu. So when he remembered, I don't know how he did it, but he remembered and he made an expression about it. But anyways, he passed away, and I was just, I don't think I slept from January 7th, 2004 to July that year. I don't think I slept. I mean, people said they used to see me leaning against the wall sleeping. But I got arrested. I went to jail. And I went to live with my brother in Blythe, and didn't last long. Left there, came back to the high desert, doing drugs, partying. And then in 2007, my little brother, he died. And that was one of the hardest things that ever happened in my life. He fell 109 feet, and nobody knows. We still don't know to this day if he jumped off that cliff or if he fell or someone pushed him. But that was a real hard time in my life. And so then from 2007 to 2010, I just kept partying, doing drugs, and then I met Gina.
Hello, my name is Gina. I'm here to give my testimony. Well, life growing up was really hard for me. I came from a big family, and my mom struggled with alcohol. And so growing up was, well, before all that, I'm sorry, um, when we were little, everything was really good. My mom, our life was great. We always ate dinner at the table. All throughout the years, my mom always gave us love. She always provided a roof over our head, and she just, from the beginning, my mom was just always our queen, always taking care of us. And soon after that, she started drinking, and so she was drinking every day, and then that's when our life kind of got unmanageable, and we started just, we lived in motels, and we were homeless for a short period of time. And so that's when I was younger. I've been through a lot. I experienced a lot of different types of abuses, and that was really hard for me to get over and to get through, because when somebody goes through abuse, any type, it really takes a toll on you. Your whole self-esteem on how you look at yourself throughout your life, and your trust issues and all that. So all throughout my life, I didn't have good trust for anybody. Um, and when I was 12 years old, I remember I started hanging around the neighborhood, the barrio. I got jumped into a gang in LA County. And so for a lot of years, I was 12. I would just hang out with the gang, and just every day I would run away. I would take off. I lived with my grandparents for a little period of time, and I remember they really tried their hardest, and I just remember taking off and just going to do my own thing, and not really caring about, how they were feeling. And my mom had gotten help. She gotten help for the alcohol, and so she was changing her whole life around. And me and my brother were just starting to run around the streets, out of control. And I got with my kid's dad when I was 12 years old, and then we started doing drugs really young. I think I was like 13 or 14. And the first time I experienced doing drugs, I was like, it was like no other feeling that I can ever explain. Just, I snorted a line of speed, and my whole life changed after that, for the bad. I was always the type of girl that always liked school. I got straight A's. I was on principal's honor roll. I was very smart, and I always loved reading. I always would sit there, and I always believed in God when I was younger. I always believed in God. I always knew there was a God, but I just didn't know how that He was going to help me. I didn't know how to draw near to Him. But as a young kid, when I was 12, I got very depressed, and I would cut myself, cut my arms. and that was my way of releasing the pain that I was feeling, the pain that I was going through in my mind, the emotional. I think being 12 and 13, you transition into a teenager, and you're so I didn't know how to express myself. So I remember writing poems when I was young. I put my feelings down on paper, but I put a blade to my wrist a lot. And I remember my mom just didn't know what to do with me, and I remember being in charter hospital for like a month, and I just I don't know, and that was just the beginning of a 27 years of drug use. And I got I got pregnant when I was 14 years old with my first son, and I remember taking him to one of his doctor's appointments, and the doctor noticed that I was loaded and I was high or something, and so they had told me, you either need to go here, or we're going to take your son away from you. And I was only 15 years old. I didn't know what to do, or I didn't even know how I was going to stop, because I was barely in the beginning of my drug use, kind of, so to say, like a couple years in. And so I went to a rehab, and I stood there for a couple months, and I thought I was going to, change, but I just didn't know. The devil had such a grip on me at that time that from that time on, I did not know how to live life without using drugs. I got so addicted from the start that my personality started changing. The outgoing girl that was always fun and loved to dance and loved to just entertain people, I was no longer that girl. It changes you, your personality, your looks, your your attitude, your everything, how you treat people. And that I was such a sweet girl that it just turned me into this grouchy, selfish person at such a young age. That so all throughout my life, I was in and out of drug rehabs all the time. Like, I had I have 5 kids, and in and out of rehabs. I used drugs through all my pregnancies, and I did stop for a couple months through my pregnancies. But my son William, when I got pregnant with him, 1999, I didn't know how to stop doing drugs completely, because at that time, um, I was so out of control. I hid my pregnancy from my whole family, from everybody. Nobody knew I was pregnant until I went into labor, and I didn't even know how far along was, because that's how out of control I was. I couldn't even come to grips with even I allowed myself to deny my pregnancy to myself. And for me to say that is very, I guess if you haven't been through it, you just don't know. But I denied it to myself that I'm going to have a baby soon, and I can't hide this any longer. And I remember doing drugs up until a couple hours before I gave birth to my son William. And I remember my family, they were like, "What do you mean you're having a baby?" Because I hid it so well. And so, sure enough, after I gave birth to him, a CPS worker came into my room, and he told me, "We're going to take your son away." And I begged him up and down. I begged him. I said every single word that I needed to say to him. And they did not take him from me. They allowed me to take him home with me. I took him home, and I said, okay. I told myself, okay, now I got a CPS case. I need to get it together. No, I couldn't, because I gave the drugs so much power and control over my life that I couldn't not do them. I needed them to function every single day. The time I woke up, all throughout my drug use, I needed drugs to function. And if I needed them, and I needed to stay high. If I wasn't high, I was always sleeping, and I was just no good to nobody, to none of my kids. And so at that time, they so I had to do a program, and I didn't follow through with it. I tried, but I just didn't try my hardest because I wasn't ready to surrender to I wasn't ready to surrender to God. And I knew all throughout my life I've been to so many different rehabs, in and out, in and out. And I had to tell myself finally I got to stop running to these safe havens and thinking that I'm going to be okay, because the minute I walked out of there, I was I it was I was alone myself, and then what, you know? So I knew in my heart that the final ultimate step that I needed to take was to surrender to God, and that was what I needed to do. And so after my son William was born, I tried to get it together so many times, and they end up coming to my apartment and they end up taking my kids away from me. They put them in the van and they were all crying, and they took them straight to my mom's house. Thank God my mom just like, bring them here, bring them here. And I just thank God that they took them straight to my mom's house. But then after that, I tried so hard to get it together, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't get it together. And knowing that all the more years have passed, the CPS gave me so many opportunities to. I remember they furnished a whole apartment for me to help me get my kids back. They bent it over backwards for me to help me to get it together, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't. I remember so many times I felt like when I was out there, and it wasn't all fun and games. I remember I felt like literally like I was crawling to make it back home to them, but I just couldn't because it was something was holding me back. Because the minute that I would go home to them, I knew I had to be the the mom that I needed to be to them, and I just couldn't. I couldn't be content with coming to my mom's house to visit them and to lay down and watch a movie with the kids. I couldn't do that. I didn't have no drugs in my pocket, and I needed to be high. And then when I got high, my mind was somewhere else. I couldn't give them the attention and the quality time that they needed. I was the most selfish person that I ever known in my whole entire life. I chose drugs over my kids, and I couldn't even allow myself to think about when my daughter would cry for me or my kids would cry and want me home. I could not put their feelings first. I put my selfish things that I needed first. And it went on like that for years. I was with their dad for 14 years, and it was very abusive from the start. And I mean, I forgive him now this day. I have nothing against him, but it was very abusive for 14 years of of going through that, and so I felt like I just was worth nothing, I I didn't even love myself, you know. But all throughout the years, my kids loved me so much, and they always wanted me. All they wanted was their mom. That's all they wanted. And I would promise them this, I would promise them that, and I would always break my promises every single time. Every single time that I would get help, and I would tell them everything is going to be better, and they're going to come back home with me, and that everything was going to be okay. And it never got to where they got to come move back with me, because I never got it together at that time for many years. And I think just knowing that, oh, my mom has the kids, they're good, they're safe, that kept me longer out there, but like I said before, I was out there, I was partying with whoever, you know, I lowered myself in so many situations and so many different times to hang around this person, hang around that person, to get high and stay high. I was completely addicted to drugs. I can honestly say that. And yeah, it just and I just remember crying all the time, crying and asking God to help me. But every time I would ask him, my heart, I wasn't completely ready to surrender my whole life. For so many years, I was 1 foot in and 1 foot out that fence. I was on the fence, and I learned that you can't do that. You got to be all in for God. You got to be all in for Jesus. You got to surrender it all. And so, oh gosh, it's just so much pain in my life. I mean, growing up, a lot of the homeboys got killed shot and killed, and just so much craziness has happened, and nothing, being out there all these years, just it was just horrible, you know. And so I had got pregnant again. I had 4 kids, and I got pregnant. Well, I got pregnant with my daughter Annalise, and and I had got to keep her in a sober living for a little while, and one time I did drugs. I was doing really good, and then I ended up getting high one time, and then they took her away from me, and that was just like, that was hard. And my sister Tina, I thank God she took her, and she adopted her, and that has been a pain in my heart. That's been a hole in my heart all these years, and but our God, the God I serve, is a God of restoration. He restores families, and I did drugs for many years. I Hi. So in 2006, um, we moved to Hesperia to get away from Riverside, because it was just too much. And it always seemed like when we were younger, my mom always kept us moving farther and farther away from what we thought the problem started, or the root of the problem was. But now today, I know that it don't matter where you go, wherever you go, there you are. You know, that's what I learned in Narcotics Anonymous. You can't hide from yourself. You gotta. It don't matter where you live. It matters how you live. You know. So we moved to Hesperia in 2006, and I tried to. It was a new, fresh start, and I tried to stay put. I said, okay. I told myself, I got to do this. This is a new place, a new start, a new fresh beginning. You know. So I tried to stay put, and we ended up moving steps away from a bar that was called. It was a crazy bar. And one day, I don't know how I ended up there, but I ended up there, and then that was it. You know, that was just, I was on another run. You know, and I was always at that bar. I probably lived at that bar, and you know, when you go to bars, you meet people, and then that's it. You know, so I started doing drugs again, and I was just never home. The kids, and at that time, I was broken. I was broken. I don't know why I kept searching for things that weren't filling my heart and completing my heart and filling that emptiness. I was always searching for something that I can take or do to make me just not care and not feel and not just think of what I needed to do, you know, my responsibilities. And so from such a young age, I always went to drugs and alcohol to fill that. I always, you know, that's just what I knew all these years. I just didn't know how to put one foot in front of the other. I didn't know how to manage my life on life's terms. You know, I didn't know how to live life without drugs. I did not know how to do it. And so um I was out of control. I was just getting high, and then, you know, there was so many times that, you know, the houses that my family had out there, they ended up started getting raided, and it was just a disaster, and it just came to a point where it was like, Lord, I need you. I don't know how to do this. I literally felt like I there was a time we were so close to living next to that bar that our backyard was so huge, and my mom had gotten the kids a big trampoline, and our backyard was in view of that bar. And I just remember being out there, and I remember, and the kids were jumping on the trampoline and up and down, and I literally felt like I was crawling on my knees to try to make it home. And home was so close, but it was so far from me, because in my mind it was so far to even just crawl there, because I couldn't get myself to go home. Like, all my kids, my family, my mom wanted was for me just to go, just come home. And I never wanted to be home, because I didn't want to deal with life. I didn't want to, I just could, I didn't know how to do it. And I remember one day, I was loaded, and I don't know, one day I ended up meeting this guy. I did not even know him, and stupid me at that time, I get in the car with this guy, and he's drunk. He's like drunk, and I had to go home. I had to go home because I had to babysit. My mom had to go to work, and I had to go home. And it was like 2 something in the morning, and I remember telling myself, don't get into this car with this guy. But I go ahead and get in the car with this guy, and then he's so drunk out of his head that the cops start chasing us, and we're turning down my street, and I know in my mind that at the end of the street is a dead end, the railroad tracks, and that's it. And this guy, I don't think he knew it, but he started driving so fast, and the cops are chasing us, and I knew in my heart, and I cried out to God. I didn't know what was going to happen. I know he was going like super, super fast, and I truly believe I had my seatbelt on, but I remember just in my mind being so calm that I just told myself, okay, it's okay. It's okay. It's going to be okay. It's okay. And I felt a peace that if I truly felt that God already had me either way, that he already knew my heart, because I always believed in him, and I knew he died on the cross for my sins, and I just knew in my heart that I was going to be okay. And we crashed. We ended up crashing real hard, and we crashed real hard, and then the cops came out, and they pulled their guns out, and it was just craziness. Anyways, I end up having, so the whole thing is, at the time of that accident, my mom seen the ambulance because she was getting up for work, and so she comes to the scene, and my sister, and they have me on the stretcher, and it's just like a nightmare. Like, I'm on the stretcher, and they're putting me into a helicopter to fly me to the hospital, and I can hear my mom telling me, it's okay, Gina, it's gonna be okay, we're here for you, it's okay. I remember they're flying me to Loma Linda Hospital from Hesperia. I just remember feeling so scared. And so I went to the hospital, and I had some, broken bones. My knee just is shot. I need a full knee replacement today. And so I had gotten out of the hospital, and I ended up trying to rest, and then I started taking, prescription drugs for the pain and stuff, and those started kicking in really hard. And I remember after a while, I found myself limping and hopping on a foot to the bar. And I'm like, what am I doing, My family thought, oh, we got her home. She ain't going nowhere. She has a broken leg, And that didn't stop me. I'm still out there running. I was still out there running around until I couldn't run around no more. And then I ended up meeting my husband, who I'm married to today.
Hey everybody, we ran out of time on this video, so we're going to do the part 2 where Gina and Frank meet up, and they'll share their testimony, their relationship, and everything they've been through and what God has brought them through. So part 2, right after this one. God bless you.